I'm always flattered when I'm asked to speak to 100 entrepreneurs about what I do, because it's the opposite of entrepreneurship. I've worked for one company for 50 years. It's the only job I've ever had, and it's very different from your experience, Raj. That I've got a paycheck every 2 weeks. I get paid for 50 years, so very, very, very different. But and I also love your about hustle, because there's hustle everywhere where there's good companies and people are successful. So a little bit on my background. I have a degree in civil engineering. I always wanted to build things. Was fortunate enough to get a job with Turner in the early 70s, in a time when there weren't a lot of jobs around. And 40 years ago, working with Bob, I was fortunate enough to get started in sports construction. And we worked together on the Charlotte Coliseum, the original Charlotte Coliseum, which is blown up about 10, 15 years ago because it became obsolete. So that gives you an idea of how things have changed. And so I'd like to talk about partnering today, and I'd like to talk about from a big company's perspective and what we look for and some experiences we've had, and possibly some opportunities for smaller businesses and entrepreneurial folks like yourselves. When you think about that, you're getting multiple companies coming together, so you get a wider range of services to the client. So rather than having one perspective, one business outlook, you're having several, in some cases, coming in and saying, this is the way, this is a better way to do it. Partners that we look for are ones that we can work with and show them some things, that the way we do things that might be different from theirs, and that might be able to gain some business acumen and also build a resume. I mean, when you go for a loan, when you go for a bank and you come in and say that you were part of a team on a multi-million-dollar job when your annual volume is under $1 million, it's got to help. It's got to help to give you some credibility with the bank. In a sense that we're spreading the wealth, we're giving everybody, the benefits that we have is spread to the client and also spread to the partners that are involved in everything. And then the last thing on the benefits is that there's long-term relationships that come out of a successful partnership. Well, there's probably multiple sequential jobs that happen, and you get a relationship that helps both all the partners that are involved. So Turner's had a lot of experience with partnering. Just as a background, we do $14 billion a year. The majority are large projects. The majority of the large projects that we do are with partners. And we do 1,500 projects a year, and they range from $3 million to over $1 billion each. So we have a wide range of projects in which we bring people onto the job. Some of the ones that we just recently finished, or one of the most prominent one, is the SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, where the Rams and the Chargers play. And you'll note that in February, it's going to be the home of the next Super Bowl. This was a big job that we couldn't possibly have done ourselves. Our contract was $3.6 billion, and it was split between two major companies and two smaller partners. And just to give you a perspective on what you have to do over 42 months of construction, you have to spend $375,000 an hour to finish the job in those 24 months. It was a big, big job, and it couldn't have been done without partnering. Just on the horizon, in the NFL horizon, we're looking at 5 new stadiums that are coming up that will bring partners on, for the Bills, the Titans, the Bears, Washington Football, and there's rumors that the Panthers are thinking of coming in. I had a personal experience in Orlando as I was in a different role there. Rather than doing the pre-construction estimating and sales effort, I was actually the full-time on-site project director, or what we call a project executive on that project. And I worked very closely with four partners on that job, and it was a great experience. We got to know each other personally, and I learned a lot from what they were struggling with on their level of business. And I hope they learned as much from me, from what we were doing on a $160 million job that we did in 10 months. It was a major renovation of an existing facility. Bob also did international work. And Bob, why don't you talk a little bit about what you did as a to partner on some of the international stuff?
You end up being president of Turner International. And kind of a rule of thumb was that we would do government contracting for the US government, and we were qualified to do it for the State Department and so on, and Corps of Engineers, and that was, we were comfortable with. But in doing private sector work in these foreign locations, we always had to have a partner. And just to give you an example, I remember going to the Asia. Now, I'd been in Vietnam in the Marine Corps, so I thought I knew a little bit about Asia, but I went out on business in the late 60s, early 70s. And my first trips to Hong Kong, I thought I knew everything about dealing with Chinese. 100 trips later, I knew about that much. It's very easy to deceive yourself into believing that you know and understand what's going on locally. That's pure bullshit. You got to have a local partner that understands the culture, understands the politics, understands what goes on above the surface and what goes on beneath the surface. And you really find the value of partnerships when you are doing a project like we were building the Kuwait government headquarters in the 90s. And all of a sudden, Kuwait was invaded by Iraq. And we went from building $1 billion construction job to having 22 expats held hostage in Kuwait City. And our Kuwaiti partners went from being multi-millionaires in Kuwait society, including the head of the civil engineering division. And they were virtually penniless because all their bank accounts were frozen. So partnerships are a test of many things, but you learn from your partners. You learn the subtleties of what's going on in different cultures, and that is so critical to being remotely successful in international work. We did Fort Belvoir Hospital when the war was going hot and heavy, and DOD decided to expand Walter Reed and build Fort Belvoir. And we partnered with our biggest competitor in the country, Gilbane. And we never thought that would happen. And it ended up being an outstanding partnership. They put top people in the project. We put top people in the project. And we built Fort Belvoir, and it was a stunning success. And the finished product was as fine an example as a DOD hospital as you'll ever find. And it really worked well. But the pattern was set from the CEO of Gilbane and the CEO of Turner, who believed in working together.
And what makes good partnerships? And the first thing that I always think about is the culture of each company. You have to have the same business philosophy, the same ethics philosophy. And when those two merge, you really get a synergy that, the sum is greater than all the parts. Another thing is the limited capacity to do the job. Big jobs. I mean, we just don't have the staff to do it. So when you can get the right person and do it together, you're much better off. Local connections, as Bob said, understanding everything about the local, the way things are done down there. If you can make those connections, those are the kind of things that that help get you into new businesses.
Tom, I just got to throw out something. There's a huge minority-owned construction management firm called McKissick and McKissick. And both those young ladies worked for Turner when they first got their engineering degree, and then went off and formed their own company. Their grandfather, I guess, had formed the oldest Black architectural firm in the United States.
Right, from Tennessee.
we've been partners with them on at least 30 jobs.
Yeah. But we're doing
Good.
the Obama Library in Chicago
And the
with them.
Martin Luther King Memorial.
A bond is basically a guarantee from a third party that you'll finish the job, and you pay a fee on this. And the bonding company always wants to limit their exposure, so they don't want you to get too far out over your skis here and get overextended. So when you're reaching the near the limit on the bonding capacity, if you bring in a partner, those two bonding companies come together and say that, that they're feeling better, that, the two companies can work together to finish the job. So as far as the deals go in partnering, there's one thing, if you get anything out of what I say today, this is the most important thing, is that when you're doing a partnership, there's a big difference between a joint venture and an association. A joint venture is a legal partnership in which you're jointly and severably liable, which means that if one of you fails, the other one has to finish the job. So if you have 10% of a deal and you're in a joint venture and the lead 90% partner for some reason can't finish, you're responsible for that. So this is something at the beginning you don't want to do. You don't want to do. You want to come in as an associate with a structured deal where you're actually working like a consultant, and you don't have the total limit of liability for the whole project. That I did in Orlando with my 4 partners is that we agreed that they each had 10%. We had 60, and each partner had 10%, but we limited their liability on their financial deal, so that if they had a certain fee, they could, no matter what happened, they could still make 50% of that deal. So this was something that gave them confidence to come in and come into a big job, 160 million, when I think one of them's volume was like $10 million a year, and here he's on a $160 million job. So when you're negotiating a partnership deal, make sure that you limit your downside risk, so that if a big job goes bad for some reason, you don't want to be collateral damage on something like that. I mean, it's so a limited liability on a downside risk is very important. Make sure that the contract spells out everything clearly, and I'd recommend that you review the contract that you have with your partner to review it by a lawyer. It'd be worth whatever the fee is to get that straightened out. And you're also looking, as Bob says, for a true partnership. You're looking for something in which you'll have tangible, what they call tangible services. So you'll actually be doing something. On this job in Orlando, of the staff, we had 10, each partner had to produce 10% of the staff, and we produced 60%. So that way they actually had employees on the job who were working alongside of us, everybody working together and learning from each other. And you need to have active communication. And I would recommend a monthly meeting with all the partners through the life of the project. So that way you're constantly knowing what's going on. You can ask questions.